welcome to The Big Question. I'm Masachaba Moshweshwe, and this is the show that challenges you to think about your own morality. It's the holiday season. South Africans are shaking the dust and grime of the year, and some are fortunate enough to hit the road for that long-awaited rest. How fortunate are they really? Many of us will not arrive alive on the other side, and road rage, death and alcohol will confront us on our journey. Many people don't agree. Arrive Alive is out in full force and ready, willing and able to deal with the culprits that compromise our lives. Zero tolerance is the motto. Traffic officers are prepared with advice, support and the necessary punishment if motorists cross the line, so to speak. Which brings us to tonight's big question. Is the Arrive Alive campaign failing us? Aaron and Leanne have been out looking for some answers.
Do you remember the last time you arrived at your destination not feeling like a wreck? Neither do I. Road rage, reckless driving, and bad attitudes are alive and well. Why worry? I can get away with it. That's why I'm arguing that the Arrive Alive campaign is failing us. My first guest is Mr. Stan Bezuidenhout, accident reconstructionist, IBF Investigations. Mr. Bezuidenhout, you say that government is in denial around the road safety problem. That's alarming.
Yes, that's correct. We must be very careful in saying a complete denial. At the end of the day, the fact is the figures are increasing, the deaths are increasing, the society is suffering, and the answers are not coming to the fore in as far as reducing those numbers are concerned.
Thank you, Stan. My next guest is Rabbi Mordechai Abraham, hospital chaplain and addictions counselor, and rabbi for Cyril Den Shul. Now, Rabbi, you say that we need to create a culture where life is valued and take our civil responsibilities more seriously. Why do you say that?
We have approximately 35 road deaths a day. When we hear about bombs going off overseas, it's alarming. Here it's happening every day. It's a holocaust on the roads. It's not good enough.
Thank you, gentlemen. Well, Leanne, was your journey as hair-raising as mine?
Aaron, my journey was a smooth ride. Officials are prepared for the festive season. To report bad driving is a phone call away, and authorities have switched to top gear to catch and prosecute those who disobey the law. That's why I'm arguing that the Arrive Alive campaign is not failing us. Supporting my argument is Mrs. Mpumi Mpofu, Director General of the Department of Transport. Mrs. Mpofu, you say that the Arrive Alive campaign is now visible throughout the year. Tell us about that.
Originally, when Arrive Alive was conceptualized, it was a program focused on the holiday seasons. A few years ago, we've expanded that program, particularly the focus on this year, as the program is expanded to intensify our activities during the holiday season. But it's a program that goes on throughout the year, and it focuses on education, communication, and law enforcement. This year, we're focusing on seatbelts, on pedestrians, on alcohol, and on speed. And this particular campaign will be very successful.
Wonderful, thank you. My next guest is John Schnell, Manager of KZN Road Traffic Inspectorate. Mr. Schnell, you say that the debate around road safety has become a part of people's everyday discussions. What would you say is the reason for that?
Certainly the increased media exposure for Arrive Alive and the increased enforcement that has been carried out, as well as the provision of equipment such as booze busters and so forth, has certainly brought home to the public a high level of risk of detection if they commit traffic offences, and therefore the talk around the dinner table is very much road safety orientated, even if some of it is how to escape prosecution and detection.
Ah, thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, Aaron. And thank you very much to our guests for coming through to our live Big Question debate. Remember, you at home can also have your say. Vote for what you believe is right by phoning 083 91 33724 or SMS the word yes or no to just 33724. That phone line again, it's 083 91 33724 or SMS yes or no to 33724. Now, before we start the debate, let's see what Aaron and Leanne found out this week.
For the first time in South Africa, we have a coherent, comprehensive strategy to deal with road safety. Over the past few years, there's been a consistent reduction in fatalities and smashes of just over 5% per annum. South Africans are more aware of the dangers of the road than ever before. So I'm arguing that government's Arrive Alive campaign is not failing us.
On average, 12,600 people are killed on South African roads a year. One person is killed every 32 minutes. and an accident occurs every 4 seconds. These facts and figures paint a grim picture for the present and future of road safety. So I'm arguing that government's Arrive Alive campaign is definitely failing us.
The Arrive Alive campaign is part of government's commitment to boost road safety. To date, it is still a highly visual, effective and successful effort to combat the carnage on our roads. Safety Promotions Director Ntau Letebele spoke to us about the campaign. Ntau, why was the campaign launched?
The Arrive Alive campaign was launched to deal with the issue of unsafety on our roads around 3 pillars. One was education and communication, information, enforcement. Arrive Alive really gave us a platform to ensure that we coordinate enforcement from a local and provincial level. So working in conjunction with traffic authorities, we're coming in as communication to support their efforts by advertising on radio and television, billboards, but also coming on the 4 messages of speed, alcohol for both pedestrians and drivers, wearing of safety belt for drivers and passengers, and pedestrian safety. Road safety is everyone's responsibility. If we value human life, all of us can really ensure that we play our part. Motorists can expect to see more patrols, plus more roadblocks. We put more resources into traffic enforcement, for we know that if we punish the few that are a law unto themselves, we will send a very strong message that lawlessness cannot be the order of the day on our roads.
South Africa's road safety rate ranks as the 4th worst in the world. Each day, more cars are joining the flow of traffic on our roads. Increase in traffic means more accidents, and paramedics are taking the brunt of this spiraling disaster. ER24 paramedics, Stuart and Ashley, talk about the carnage they see on our roads every day. As a paramedic, why do you feel that the Arrive Alive campaign has been unsuccessful?
The biggest thing for me is that it's only at exceptional times, during peak holiday times. I believe that it should be every month, so people are starting to think about it and understand the safety on the roads.
We concentrate on Arrive Alive, but we're not, the law enforcement behind it is not doing their role. When it comes to December periods, you have hardly any law enforcement on the road. Kids are still sitting in the front seats of the cars. People not wearing their seatbelts. They're still driving and speak on their cell phones.
The campaigns need to be real. The public need to acknowledge what the campaigns are actually there for and what the story they're trying to punt, and that they must actually adhere to what the campaigns are trying to say.
What should be done to ensure road safety?
We should be first up promoting safety, and then the public must get involved as well. They're not getting out of the way of emergency vehicles, and then the law enforcement, they must start to act.
Have you seen an increase in the number of accidents on our roads?
Our roads are not what they were 20 years ago. There's a lot more volume, and there's definitely an increase in accidents.
Personally, how has the increase in number of accidents affected you?
The paramedics cannot keep up with the amount of calls. Long ago, you didn't have that. You went out there and there was 1 accident a day. Now we can do anything between 30 to 40 accidents. For the amount of accidents we were doing every single day, and the amount of drivers on our roads now, we need to double the strength of traffic officers out there.
Out on the road, it's our traffic officers who make a difference. They deal with drunk drivers, speed offenders and lawbreakers. It's a thankless job with long working hours, but Arrive Alive has given them the support they need. We spoke to Metro Police Officer Jimmy Nkuna. Jimmy, as a Metro Police Officer, why do you believe that Arrive Alive is working?
Arrive Alive has created awareness. Most of the things were not known. You just get your driving license, you drive on the road, happily, nicely, forgetting that you have to drive with other motorists. You're not the only one on the road. Arrive Alive has given awareness to all our pedestrian traffic. They know now that they are not allowed to be on the freeways, and they mustn't just jaywalk on intersections because they are creating problems.
How has Arrive Alive motivated you and your colleagues?
All of our colleagues, they know now that they are law enforcement officials. They are the ones responsible for the lives of all the road users, including pedestrians and children.
Where are the specific areas where Arrive Alive has made a difference?
because of the major roadblocks that we are doing almost every week or every day. The total number of drunken drivers are now reducing. They are no more that high like before because of the harsh sentences that the people are getting from the judiciary authority.
Jimmy, how would you feel if your family was on the road and there was no Arrive Alive?
I couldn't even allow them to have driver's licenses to drive on the road. Because of Arrive Alive, I am free. Whenever they go into the car and drive, I'm free. I know they will come back.
The rising rate of lawlessness on the roads can't be tolerated. A reckless driver destroyed the lives of 2 sisters. He paid 1,500 rands, admission of guilt fine. That was the end of the story for him. Charisse is permanently brain damaged, and her sister Joanne is scarred for life. Joanne and her mother, Tonette, shares the story.
We were coming home from buying takeaways on the 29th of August. And on the way back, I think the car misjudged himself with us. And he turned right in front of us and we hit him. Everybody has to be more than careful because somebody else can cause somebody to lose their life. And it's just like in a split second.
Toe ons daar aankom, toe was dit afgryslik. Maar dit was net bloed en alles. En van daai oomblik af het ons hele lewe verander. Charisse was baie liefdevol. Sy was baie opgewek. Sy was baie vol lewe. Sy kan nie praat nie. Sy het nou onlangs eers begin eet. En sy kan nie loop nie. So daar's van niks nut in hierdie lewe nie.
The Arrive Alive campaign, when our accident happened, I didn't even know about it. And even now, I don't know much about it. So I don't think the Arrive Alive campaign is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing, saving lives.
Vir my is dit nie aanvaarbaar nie. Ek het 2 kinders byna nie dood afgestaan.
What about the other driver?
Their drivers out there leading a normal life, and there my sister is bound to that room, her chair, and people looking after her. I might be one of the lucky ones, but somebody else might not be. I think with time, it heals all wounds, even if it takes a while. I think this one would just take more time, but it gets better. You know, I know how to deal with it now.
DG, I mean, this is just another example of the thousands of lives that are severely affected by these kinds of tragedies. And many South Africans are of the opinion that most culprits get away with it, with gross negligent behavior. Is it not government's moral duty to bring these people to justice? I mean, is a life really worth 1,500 rand?
No, it isn't. And I think the important consideration, as I indicated earlier, is that our campaign has also been focusing on a fourth element. And the fourth element is actually the behavior of road users. Now, quite simply put, we place the responsibility on both our communities and government to ensure that there's compliance with the law and there are penalties where there is no such compliance. But more importantly, I think what we've been missing as a society is actually focusing on the behavioral issues. The behavior of road users actually requires focused attention and focused effort. Because as much law enforcement as we can have as a country, and we've increased our resources on the law enforcement side, that can be as effective to a particular point.
I want to come back to that, but right now I'd like to focus, to come to you, Stan, and ask, how do we force government to answer for the failure of this campaign? I mean, if we're talking about a new added dimension to the campaign, then government is saying we realize that the first one was a failure and we're trying to improve on it, is it not?
Absolutely. I think one of the most important things we need to focus on is there's a gross lack of public interaction. Currently, the arrivealive.co.za website, for instance, has generated enormous feedback from the public. That has got us to the point where we firmly believe that the public is suddenly seeing the need to answer back and to ask questions and to approach. If we just look at how many families approach us for closure on accidents after the fact and make allegations like nothing was done, it wasn't done properly, I don't know what happened, I don't know why, then certainly there's a problem. But there is also a general lack of interest. It's as if the public believes that even if they complain, nothing will come of it. I've got good examples of those cases.
I like that. How then, John, do we have a public that says nothing was done? I don't know what is going on. I'm not getting any answers. If we're talking about a campaign that's very successful.
Yes, I think the campaign and enforcement in particular must be seen in 2 dimensions. Proactive enforcement, which is enforcement before the accident happens and which is what is the normal area of responsibility of traffic policing. and then reactive enforcement, which is the investigation of accidents involving injuries or fatalities, and the presentation of those cases to the prosecuting authority to put through the judicial system. There is no doubt that the level of proactive enforcement in this country has been multiplied many times through the Arrive Alive project, both in terms of equipment, in terms of officer hours, and in terms of enforcement focuses.
Rabbi, I want to bring you in here and talk about our attitude. I mean, as I understand it, South Africa is one of the countries with the worst reputation. Why is that? What is wrong with our attitude?
I need to tell you, I come from Toronto, Canada. That's where I was raised. And as a child, we were taught that you stop at a traffic light when it's red. When I was a little boy and I saw someone go through a red light, I went to my parents and I told them I'd never seen such a thing before. Every day, despite Arrive Alive, I see probably maybe dozens of people going through lights, red lights. And even though there's a small chance of something wrong happening, an accident happening, but you multiply that by 1 million that happen in the country, and you have dangerous accidents happening every day. And the culture is you don't have to stop. And even those people that are normally law-abiding, they'll pay their taxes and they'll do other things, it's not seen as serious.
That is what is worrying. I mean, DG, we understand that Mr. Bezuidenhout has offered his services. Is government willing to look at other alternatives? Other ways of trying to save the lives of South Africans on our roads?
Yes, government is particularly looking at different ways of saving lives on the roads. And I want to refer specifically to our efforts during this particular campaign. The intensification of the particular campaign, and as I indicated, during the year we have a normal Arrive Alive campaign. During holiday seasons we intensify, we double, we quadruple, we multiply, multifold the efforts. One of the things that would be quite important, particularly this, is the number of patrol cars that we have on the roads. And evidence quite clearly demonstrates that visibility of law enforcement officers on the roads significantly reduces road accidents and changes road user behavior. The important element of that is quite simply we will be also targeting specific areas that are known to be hazardous locations. And in the country, our research has quite clearly indicated that about 84 of the very hazardous locations where we'll be placing people. There's also another tendency in the culture where people observe traffic officers as part of the traffic. They do not see that as potentially a law enforcement on duty. We're changing that attitude. Every traffic officer that is visible on the road, whether they are driving or standing or behind trees or driving behind you, can actually nab you for whatever activities that are seen to be traffic offences.
DG, I think something I'd like to mention at this stage. What you're saying is absolutely correct, and I support everything you're saying, and we definitely find I do a lot of investigations around the country, having just returned from Gauteng. But there is a definite but here. When we look at the campaign surrounding Arrive Alive, we see a lot of activities from the so-called provincial traffic, from the national routes. However, the drunken drivers and the driving under the influence is more focused in and around the major cities and the major metropolitans. From our experience, we're not finding the same commitment from the officers within cities and within towns. There's a distinct difference. Law enforcement and the lack of law enforcement is not really the problem. It's the forced non-compliance by the public. We know that if you cross a line, change lanes without indicators, not a problem. If you don't wear a seatbelt, you might get stopped, but you probably won't. These are the problems that we feel are the biggest problems, the lack of moving violation enforcement.
The important element of that, I must add, is this year sees a different approach altogether. We've just recently established the Road Traffic Management Corporation, which is an institution that is responsible, and an agency of government that's responsible for coordinating all those different agencies of traffic management, from provincial traffic inspectorates, from provincial traffic divisions, from metropolitan, etc., etc. And the RTMC, for the first time, is operational this year, coordinating all of those activities, putting the Arrive Alive campaign under the umbrella, briefing officials, making sure there's training. We've even provided them with a new fleet of 120 cars. They'll be on the roads, they'll be there, they'll be visible. People will see the difference.
This is sounding wonderful, and we're hearing government commitment to this. But Stan, you've had an experience that goes contrary to this, am I correct?
Yes, that is correct. I've actually had a couple. I think one of the most important things to mention here is, for instance, As a specialised accident investigation unit, we've offered our services to various elements of government for free, including the Arrive Alive campaign, National Department of Transport, provincial government and the police services. And we were recently informed that the Deputy Area Commissioner for our area has informed his members that they are not allowed to accept or request our assistance, although it was offered for free. These are the kinds of things that are extremely concerning. Just this morning at 1:30, I received a call from an officer at an accident scene on a national road. Stan, please. I've got only one car with blue lights. I've got no cameras, no measuring equipment, nothing. Can you help me? I said, hey, your commissioner said I'm not allowed to. He said, but what am I supposed to do? So I went there and helped. 3:30
we still
were
have
done.
officers that do not have the necessary equipment?
Well, in certain areas, I think there might be elements of under-resourcing. But let's come back to the real point. The real point is, by the time you're called in, it's too late. The accident has already happened. Our efforts in government are really meant to deal with the stage before, of preventing accidents, of making sure that there's sufficient law enforcement on our roads to prevent. In fact, we want to reduce your workload, not increase it.
Absolutely.
So that, in fact, there are less accidents on our roads and actually ensure that we don't need your services to a large extent.
Yes,
But I can't answer for particular officials who have denied you access or not accepted your offers. But in essence, generally, our campaign around roadblocks, around visibility, around actual enforcement of the law. This year, we're actually even dealing with overload, okay, of pedestrians and of trucks, which invariably, particularly on the major routes, are significant causes of road accidents. And in those particular areas, we want to actually reduce the causes of accidents rather than deal with it reactively once the accident
Rabbi, let me bring you in here. We're talking about enforcement. I mean, it takes about 10 minutes to issue a ticket for speed. That officer can be deployed in a visible manner to deter people from breaking the law. But are people actually deterred from breaking the law when they see a traffic officer?
Well, they might not. You know, I just want to address that sort of issue. You see, you talk very nicely, but in practice, it's not exactly the way you're saying it. I'll tell you what my problem is. My problem is I don't see that the police are particularly good at keeping the law for themselves. I drive along and I see the police driving a car speaking on a cell phone. I see when I'm stopped at the lights, he's not an emergency, he'll go through a red light as well, or through a stop sign. That's what I see. So that sends a message. Everybody knows about police officers who are stopping people, and what are they doing for? They're doing it for bribes. Everybody knows it. And that sends a message that these people aren't serious.
John, I want to come to you. How do we expect people to abide by the law if the people enforcing it are not abiding by the law?
Those of us who operate in a uniformed environment and are tasked to apply the legislation, we should behave in such a way in every facet of our lives so that we are living out the legislation,
Agreed.
The spirit of the legislation and the letter of the legislation every day. We should wear seatbelts. We should abide by the prevailing legislation. We should set the example because that gives us the high moral ground to enforce the legislation later when it's necessary. What is very important is if people are driving in front of a police or a traffic vehicle and they commit an offence, they must know that in every likelihood the officers will stop them and deal with them, either prosecute them or whatever course of action they elect to do.
We'll continue with this, and I know that the rabbi wants to jump in and say that's not the case. We're going to take a short break now. Remember to call during the break and cast your vote. Is the Arrive Alive campaign failing us? Have your say. Phone 083-91-33724 or SMS the word yes or no to 33724. A quick update right now, 64% of you are saying yes, the Arrive Alive campaign is failing us. We'll keep you updated with the results at the end of the show. Back after this. Welcome back to tonight's big question. Is the Arrive Alive campaign failing us? Now, the model issue here is that government has to ensure our constitutional right to life. Government has to ensure the effectiveness of their campaigns, and safety and security should be a top priority. But do South Africans actually respect life? I mean, every day we see drivers ignoring traffic laws, and this often results in fatal accidents. What can we, as citizens of this country, do to assist the authorities in bringing the culprits to justice? One alternative is to call this national number to report bad driving. The number is 086 1400 800. That's 086 1400 800. We will repeat that number at the end of the show. So please keep a pen and paper handy. And please remember that the next insert may be not suitable for sensitive viewers. Let's take a look.
There are currently more than 200 different traffic policing authorities in our country. There's often little coordination between them, and there's no uniform training. No one seems to be accountable for the daily death toll on our roads, and each day, more people die. Driver Lives Moira Winslow feels that the Arrive Alive campaign is not doing enough to ensure safety on our roads. Moira, why do you feel that Arrive Alive is failing us?
There is absolutely no coordination between the 9 provinces. There is no one person or one group in the Department of Transport that is in charge of road safety and is writing meaningful strategy which is used by the 9 provinces simultaneously.
What do you think the government should do to address the carnage on our roads?
We have to ask the MECs to all agree to work together under the Department of Transport. We have to include road safety in the national curriculum in schools. It would be wonderful if we could use the national television stations and the national radio stations and all the community stations to give out the same message. Government has to take control so that we can have a cohesive strategy, for God's sake.
What are Driver Life's aims?
One of the aims is to get the government to change legislation to incorporate reflective clothing into children's school uniforms, obviously to reduce the deaths. United we stand, divided we not only fall, but we fail.
It's time road users take responsibility for the destruction they cause. We need to change our mindset. Gary Ronald's Automobile Association believes we need to make road safety a #1 priority. Gary, what successes do you think the Arrive Alive campaign has had?
The Arrive Alive campaign has succeeded in doing a couple of things right. One of them was getting funding from external sources that would not normally be budgeted for within the Department of Transport's own budget, to provide money to buy essential equipment for traffic law enforcement, such as speed cameras, alcohol detectors, scanners that can read licenses and license discs on cars, and also to pay for additional overtime that these officers would need to work during very busy periods.
How can road users assist government?
I think every citizen has a duty to assist government by placing a premium on their own safety. It's as simple as that. Most people would understand and know what the road laws are that relate to their various activity, whether it is walking on a freeway, whether it is driving a car at speed, or simply not buckling up, even in the back seat, making sure that the kids are buckled up in a suitable child restraint. If we had a seatbelt wearing rate in South Africa of around about 90%, well, we'd probably save about 30% of the 12,000 lives that are lost every year. We need an absolute commitment from government to continue putting money towards road safety. We also need government to look further than just the Department of Transport. We need to involve road safety as a curriculum study subject at schools. We also need to get communities involved, and probably more importantly, get big business involved. Well, the AA has a very good relationship with Arrive Alive. It is basically founded on a belief that both organizations working together can achieve a lot more than singly. Because, you know, even if we save one life, it makes a big difference.
One life does make a big difference. But Stan, I mean, what is the point of government trying to force people to be more responsible if there is complete disregard for life by the motorists themselves?
Yes, it's a very valid point. I think the most concerning thing at the moment, as we experience it in and around the accident investigations we do and have done, is there are instances where lives were lost. Like recently I worked on a case where a person was assaulted and ended up being dragged along by a car. And even after the case, anonymous reports came into the effect that the people that assaulted that person were still walking around bragging about it. Now, whether that's true or not is difficult to say, but it's those kinds of things that are concerning, where a very serious injury is turned into a joke going around via email. our culture has become inverted in terms of morality. We have got to a stage where people are so used to 12,000 people a year dying that if another 12,000 dies, there's not a major concern from the public anymore.
I think we have to really stop urban legends in their tracks. And in fact, there's no discipline that has more urban legends than barroom conversations about traffic enforcement and traffic safety. The insert said quite clearly there are more than 200 traffic law enforcement agencies in this country, and that's probably quite correct, although a number of the municipalities have merged. What is incorrect to suggest is that those entities do not work together at multi-jurisdictional roadblocks and support each other, so that on Friday and on Saturday in the Durban and Pietermaritzburg area, 39 people were arrested for drunken driving in roadblocks that were staffed by people from the national police, from the provincial traffic police, from the local authority. Sometimes we have customs and excise that join us, and so forth. The key is multidisciplinary roadblocks, and that's a one-stop shop at the side of the road.
But this is
for
in
maximum
KZN.
Impact. Of course it's
in
from
KZN. How do we develop a cohesive strategy that filters through to all non-profit? Because we're all aware that in KZN, alufagwa, as they say. But what about the rest of the provinces?
Now, I'll definitely agree with Mr. Schnell in as far as KZN is concerned. I haven't worked. I've heard very good things from that province, but I can tell you some very bad horror stories that I've personally experienced in other provinces. One case that jumps to mind immediately is an instance where there was an accident that already happened, where people were already injured, where the driver was breathalyzed and found to be over the limit, but still told by the husband, take your wife home. We actually put in a statement against that officer, never heard about the case again. It's very disturbing to get to the stage where, and we must understand, drunken driving equals 2 hours of work. 2 hours of work, there's another officer off the road for 2 hours in stations where there might already be a shortage of resources. We understand the shortage of resources. And I understand the fact that there's an absolute necessity for preemptive and proactive prevention.
But what don't you understand? You're saying you understand, so why are you on this side? What don't you understand?
The part that I don't understand is why it is that as much as we're talking about proactive prevention, the fact is 12,000 people are going to die this year. The fact is a very major part of those people are not going to know why and how.
I'm not sure we can say that. We don't know how many people are going to die this year, and I think we all need to just wait and see what the impact of this campaign has been. And quite clearly, let me just go back to the issue around the figures. The important thing around figures and death statistics, fatalities on the roads. It happened previously in this country when we were witnessing the monitoring of figures on crime. Immediately there was enforcement and monitoring of figures on crime. The figures shot up and we all cried wolf. And quite very soon after that, the figures started stabilizing. It's exactly the same effect we've had on Arrive Alive. The more monitoring we have, the more satellite stations we have, the more information we're able to pick up. In the first years following that, you will witness an increase. And that is exactly what happened last year. And our view is that you will see those figures stabilizing and you'll actually see those figures starting to reduce. What is important from the insert is there is an RTMC. And I think the issue around coordination of the various law enforcement agencies has already been resolved. I'm surprised that people from Drive Alive don't know this and then actually has said that it doesn't exist.
Robert, what do you think? I mean, what kind of penalties do you think will shift drivers' attitudes? Because here we're talking about personal responsibility.
Okay, a lot of this stuff has to do with legislation. Stan, we discussed before the show how there needs to be a penalty system, a point system, a demerit system. Because you know how many red lights are you allowed to go through in this country right now? As many as you can afford. As many as you can afford. Where I come from, you can go through 2 in the course of 2 or 3 years, and then you lose your license. 2 lights. That's
Why
it.
not take away people's license? Why not impound their cars for 6 months? Why
Well, we
not?
are in the process of establishing and adjudicating road traffic offences institution. But the challenge, quite simply from an institutional perspective, is we have just established the RTMC, as I indicated, and the second step is then to establish for the institution for adjudication of road traffic offences. And our view is that that total package will start to have the kind of impact where we're able to monitor the offences, create penalties, create a merit system even, so that people know that if there's good behavior on the roads, they get points for it, etc., etc. And that system is actually going to help us monitor much more effectively on the offences side.
Can I just say, we haven't talked about taxis. I drove a taxi cab in Toronto. It's a different scene. I had to take a course for a week. I had to take a course for a week. In Canada, if you drive a vehicle that big, you need a special license as well. It doesn't exist here.
It doesn't exist here?
They're a major problem, as far as I know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Now, there is a requirement for a professional driving permit, and before you can obtain such a permit for the conveyance of passengers, you have to be 21 years of age or older. But there is no requirement for a prescribed training course. There has been some negotiation with the taxi industry. It's very likely that it can be included as part of the future recapitalization program.
Let me come in there and say that we will be doing a show on the taxi industry in the new year. So that is definitely something that we will be looking at in terms of what is happening with the taxi industry, taxi recap, and unroadworthy vehicles. Now, the issue for me is, talking about unroadworthy vehicles, they get impounded. If a car is unroadworthy, it gets impounded. Why do we not then impound in a way, or take off the road, unroadworthy drivers? Because there are many unroadworthy drivers out there. Why don't we do that, John?
I think what we need is a legislative amendment, and that can be done relatively easily, I think, wherein a second or subsequent offender will automatically lose his or her driver's license for a period of 3 or 6 months or a year or even longer, and then face cancellation on the basis of 3 strikes and you're out. And I think the rabbi will agree with me. What makes driver's licenses so valuable and important in overseas countries, the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom, is that if you are convicted for drunken driving or for certain other offences, and most certainly offences that kill people as a result of bad driving, you lose your licence. It's part of a prescribed penalty.
And that's the thing. Is this good enough, Rabbi? I mean, we're talking about countries where this has been proven. We're talking about situations. We're talking about a disparate situation in South Africa. Is it good enough that we're saying we're looking into it? We are examining, we are investigating the options?
It's better than nothing. Please God, it'll happen. But right now, it's not taken seriously enough that I see on the road, right out there. I don't see it's serious enough.
From our perspective, I think something else that we need to spend a bit of time on is we talk about law enforcement. The moment law enforcement becomes a guaranteed effect, in other words, if a violation equals prosecution, we have an improvement in the system. If we look at the permanent speed camera scenarios, we know for a fact, everybody knows that when you get to this camera, there's a bunch of skid lines in front of them and everybody races from the other side. So we know that the cameras are very effective in as far as people see them and know they're going to be photographed. Why can we not instill the same fear when they see a traffic or police officer?
Well, we are, and I think we need to actually look at what the traffic officers will be able to achieve, particularly in an intensified campaign. And really, through the roadblock systems, through satellite police stations, what we've actually estimated is that 90% of the time when there is an accident, 90% of the time is because a traffic offense has been committed just prior to that accident, whether it's overtaking on a blind spot, etc., etc. And dealing with those issues around prevention, particularly of drivers, is going to be an important element. But I think we're also missing a point. Driver behavior is also influenced largely in our situation by none other than alcohol. 60% of the time there is a car accident, people have actually consumed alcohol. So whilst we focus our efforts and our attention on the traffic officials, it's actually about driver behavior and the consumption of alcohol on our roads, which we must be able to stamp out.
I've never been breathalyzed.
Unfortunately, I'm going to come in. It's time for a short break. We have run out of time in this segment. Don't go away, because when we come back, we're going to hear what our studio audience has to say. Is the Arrive Alive campaign failing us? Remember to cast your vote by phoning 083 91 33724. If you want to SMS, send the word yes or no to just 33724. We'll have the final results at the end of the show. A quick update. 70% of you right now are saying yes, the Arrive Alive campaign is failing us. We're back after this. Welcome back to tonight's big question. Is the Arrive Alive campaign failing us? Well, it's time now to hear from our studio audience. Questions or comments for our panelists. Yes, sir, in the front.
Hi, my name is Wayne and I'm from a company called TNS, Toot and Scoot. I don't believe that the Arrive Alive campaign is working. I think the amount of people that are dying state that it's not working. Too many people are being killed on our roads. I think it's a bigger question than just saying it's the government's responsibility. The government are not driving our individual vehicles. We need to take responsibility for what we're doing.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Yes, sir.
My comment is actually on the incidents that we saw.
Quickly, sir, go ahead.
It is disturbing to hear that some organizations that preach road safety do not know about the Road Traffic Management Corporation and actually misinform people that there are no road safety officers.
Whose responsibility then is it to make them aware of the RTMC?
We have made them aware as our partners in road safety. And the education part, the RTMC is actually launching a school-based education system from next year, which is on the curriculum.
Lovely, sir. Thank you very much. I'm going to cut you short there. Yes, next one. Yes, sir.
Lawmakers are successfully making laws. Law enforcers are the ones who are having a problem. I'm talking about those officers on our roads, those who take bribes to unroadworthy cars, secondly, unroadworthy cars. So I think law enforcers are the ones who are having a problem, making it successful.
Is this being looked at, DG? Law enforcers that are not enforcing the law?
Yes, that is a particular part of this program, but overall it's part of an overall program to stamp out corruption in the overall public service. And I might indicate that clearly we have mechanisms, and previously we had a campaign where we encourage people to report accidents, to report law enforcers who were taking bribes, etc., to actually encourage people to report these incidences. But in essence, I think the focus really in this particular area should be on the road users. To say a campaign has failed us to prevent fatalities, I think is a problematic attitude. It's probably to say that there are deaths on our road. The campaign has had some impact in reducing those deaths on our roads.
Okay, last one. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Chaba, to allow me this opportunity.
Quickly, sir.
In fact,
Thank you.
I just want to be very quick. The campaign of Arrival is really working. The only problem depends on the drivers, because the drivers, sometimes they don't obey the rules of the road. The road says you must drive less than 100, but the drivers only to find that it drives more than 200 speed. This is really unacceptable.
So motorists are not taking
they're really
responsibility.
doing the good job. They must keep up their good job, because this is...
Thank you, sir. It's not about Arrive Alive. It's about us taking responsibility as motorists. We've heard from both sides. Now it's your chance to answer the big question. Is the Arrive Alive campaign failing us? Well, right now, 73% of you are saying yes, it is. If you haven't voted yet, this is your last chance to call us on 083 91 33724, or you can SMS the word yes or no to 33724. After the break, we have the final results for you, and we see how our studio audience votes. Don't go away. We're back after this. Welcome back to tonight's big question. Is the Arrive Alive campaign failing us? Well, it's time now for Leanne and Aaron to see if they're able to sway the studio audience to their side of the argument. Aaron?
Thanks, Master Chab. Well, after speaking to the Diesel family, I asked myself a question to say that if the awareness behind the Arrive Alive campaign is working, how come people still go behind the wheel drunk? They drive recklessly, they drive without licenses, and the list goes on. And the only answer I could come up with is that because the law behind the campaign is not enforced, and because people know they can get away with murder.
Aaron, I spoke to several people this week, and everybody knows exactly what Arrive Alive is. However, this is not translating into personal responsibility. Arrive Alive cannot be held responsible if we get behind the wheel of our car and we cannot value our own life and the lives of others. Well, your votes at home have been counted, but before we hear the results, let's hear what our studio audience thinks.
Hands up if you believe my side of the argument that the Arrive Alive campaign is failing us. It's looking good.
Ow, yes.
Another one in the back for me.
All right, rub. Hands down. Hands up those of you who agree with my side of the argument that the Arrive Alive campaign is not failing us. Oh.
Well, I win this one again, Leanne.
I've lost this one, but for all of those of you who said it is failing us, I hope that you're not breaking the law on the road, Ms. Chava.
Well, the majority of this audience say that the Arrive Alive campaign is failing us. And taking a look at home, you agreed with them. 72% said yes, it is failing us, with only 28% saying no, the Arrive Alive campaign is not failing us. Let's get a final comment from our panelists. Rabbi, the Arrive Alive campaign is failing us. And a big discrepancy in terms of the numbers. What does it mean?
Well, let me just say something. I'm a school teacher. If someone were to walk into my classroom, despite my best efforts, with all sorts of excuses, the kids are throwing paper planes and they're fighting in the classroom, and this one gets hurt, it's my fault. I can't blame the kids.
Despite all my best efforts. Good one. John?
Well, I'd like to just say that I would believe the public should support their local traffic police, and that given the debate this evening, they should not moan, groan, complain, write letters to the paper when they see increased, more stringent, thorough traffic law enforcement. They've asked for it. It seems to me we should deliver it.
It's going to come.
If we look at the simple reaction from the public, in as far as the phone-ins are concerned, they're saying 72% of people say it's not working. That might manifest itself in the form of them actually not having any fear of the campaign or the supposed prosecution that's supposed to come out of that. I think that's the problem here. The society has not yet caught onto the Arrive Life campaign individually.
Okay. DJ?
The campaign has been very successful in actually creating awareness. I think we all agree on that. Government can do as much as it can to create that awareness, ensure compliance and enforcement. And that I can confirm government has done. But the people on the roads are the people who are responsible for the accidents that happen at the end. Government cannot control road user behavior. It can penalize, create incentives and disincentives for such behavior, but it cannot control what you do under the influence of alcohol on our roads. And that is the most important challenge that now remains for all of us.
Thank you all for a great debate. Thank you very much for coming through. I know the rabbi is shaking his head saying, I am still responsible as a teacher for what happens in my classroom. I'm still responsible. Remember to carry on debating on our website. Go to www.thebigquestion.co.za. A quick reminder that the national number again to report bad driving is 086 1400 800. 086 1400 800. Please drive safely and arrive alive at your destination. Join us again next week when we ask the big question, has Christ gone out of Christmas? Until then, from us all here at The Big Question, good night. If you have any comments to make about The Big Question, or if you'd like to be part of our studio audience, call us on 083-920-3001 or email us on comments@thebigquestion.co.za. You can also carry on debating on our website. Go to www.thebigquestion.co.za.